Before I start with the video, an official title is finally coming out on Steam on the 18th. It's called Wayblazer Dammerung, originally an all ages title that got an pen later on. Probably just download from Shirvoni like normal. I'm not really sure how it works, if the pen is like at the end or if it's integrated well in the middle and it'll actually like help with the game loop. I'm not sure. But basically just think about buying it, so maybe they'll finally consider sending more of their stuff outside. The plot is by the same guy that did Movie Master, which is usually my favorite out of the 5 Yoshido titles that I've read. Technically 4, considering one of which is a sequel to a movie anyway. I think Fukan was the popular one, but I want to read like, I think it was like Mado Kakaku or something, and maybe Sankaki or Sankai, I think is what it's called. Even if it was rated kind of like lower than the rest of them from what I remember. I think it's because it's like there's a chaos route that's like, oh, you kind of get fucked over or something like that, I don't know. So that's what I'll be reading and writing about for the next time, which will probably make me stall like the Sparrow Drops and the Pure Footed 1926. I think I can finish the rest of them. Anyway, with that out of the way, I finished Lovepical Poppy, and it's fine, but also the one I like the least from Smee. There's a lot of Moe brands, but Smee is my favorite. Well, at least out of the ones that I put in the Moe box. There's a lot of titles where I'll just deny they're Moe titles when they absolutely look like one. And it's like, no, there's some plot in there. Shut up. Or rather, there's like a centralized plot. It's like, no, there's a theme going on instead of just being happy and having a good time, right? Before Poppy came out over here, I noticed that the usual voice actors that I was used to aren't there anymore, and that kind of sucks since I felt like they carried most of the humor in these titles. Not to say that the new ones are like unknown, there's still other good titles for the most part, but I just like the others better for the, you know, it's like, I'm used to, I'm a big baby, it's like, why change? The ones I'm used to are either like really snappy or have one of those like gap personalities to the point that they sound really like manic at times, and it's like it wasn't as crazy so it looks like as a project, but at least has some flair into it, so it's a lot more entertaining than the Ubisoft ones. Even though there's some like normally a character or two that can kind of do that, but still not as good as Smee's. Poppy goes for a more normal / like generic approach where it's just the guy that got his apartment burned down, coupled with being like constantly in debt due to his dad. The dad's not around because he's trying to pay it all back. So he skip a bit of meandering around and he becomes like a dorm parent alongside helping like with this cafe, though they just call him the dorm mother, and the dorm people are kind of like iffy about him at first, but then they warm up to him. It's like, all right, he's kind of cool, and because he takes care of like a lot of shit a lot better than anybody expected. It helps that the manager of the whole thing was doing jack shit the whole time, and she was just doing like random shit like death games. It's funny, honestly, she felt like a classic Smee minor character, but you barely see her around compared to like a lot of the other titles that they show up here and there all the time in every chapter, and this one's like, nah, she's in the common route and then she's barely around anymore. So the main cast is eventually branched into 2 groups after the common route. One side has like Nozomi and Suzuku alongside like a smaller route with Ayako, and the other side is Miyu and Tamaki alongside like Tanpopo's smaller route. I just consider the 2 as like extras, I guess. The thing is, I don't really care much about Tanpopo. She's kind of like a weirdo airhead for the most part. Like, she has more going on, but it's mostly just that. But her route had potential to be something decent, even if nothing original, right? It's like, I've seen this before, but it looked like it was gonna be good, but then it just gets shoved into an extra route, so it's really short and nothing really comes out of it. It's like, oh, all right, it's done. Everything really felt rushed and nothing had like time to settle. Like, them going on a date took as much time as them going to the new setting and like, hey, here's all these other people, here's what this land's about, here's what the town's really slow compared, everybody knows what everybody's doing, and it's like, it was really short. Ayako's route was the same length, but everything was a lot more contained, and it's just her going through like self-esteem issues, and it's just minor hijinks here and there, and it's funny. And Ayako and Suzuka are like the ones that remind me most about Smee in like in a more subdued way, and that's actually fine if Tetsuya, the main character, was a little more unhinged. I wouldn't call him boring, but he's not giving out the energy to balance out the rest of the cast. Consider like if there's like a party stat allocation and the only stat is some Looney Tunes madness, right? So the amount of stats are the same, just divvied up differently. So let's say in Friends to Lovers, the guy is the complete dumbass, but he's funny, his immaturity. It balances out with the characters act more normal more often than not. He took most of the points, right? The guy from Sugar Style's a lot less crazy, but the girls were also dialed up a bit to compensate. And Heron Kingdom kind of dialed them all up, but some of them are like in specific scenarios or in their interests. So like one of them more often than not was so normal that she was kind of boring, but goes a little unhinged if it's anything about like surviving in the wilderness. And it's like, holy shit, did you go through that? And she's like freaking out, and it's funny. So it's more like a dynamic where the points keep being moved around. And Making Lovers is the kind of same thing where the main guy, Kazuma, is kind of insane in the common route to the point where he was like pretty A lot, but he was a little annoying, but it's really short and he cools off in the routes. But let's go with like Saki from Making Lovers. He's a little loco again and she has it more under control. Eventually something happens and she becomes unhinged and the guy becomes more sane to keep the balance. It's always something about balance. But for Poppy, it feels like everything had a smaller stat pool and they're all like a little bit more subdued. And that's fine, but it's also like that's not what I expect from Smee. Except for Nozomi, but she also felt like pretty forced than being like naturally unhinged. It's like that Teen Titans to Teen Titans Go show type of thing where like Beast Boy and Cyborg were always like a little more party animals, a little bit more crazy here and there, but they still have like their episodes where they're serious or they're like calm, and other episodes is fine. And in Teen Titans Go, they're always like 100% going crazy, and it's like it became annoying. So it's like, you know, their stats are always maxed out in craziness. I guess a better example is when there's like a naturally funny comedian and then there's another one that's trying to force it out and it comes off as more like loud and obnoxious than funny. Nozomi still has her moments. Actually, she has a lot of good moments and it's not even a horrible route at all, but if someone will mention Nozomi to me later on, I just think like, oh yeah, the really loud character. So by the end, Suzuka was probably the one that felt more like a Smee character, but more like Shirker style than Making Lovers or Harem Kingdom. Generally, I wouldn't say any of them have anything worthwhile plot-wise. There's a little bit here and there with Suzuka because they're like siblings and there's like the dad thing, right? And Nozomi like met the main character when she was younger and he inspired her to be like more vocal, more outgoing. It's like, all right, something. And like I just said, the dad comes in Suzuka's route and what he was doing to pay off all the debt. It's like, all right, that was funny. It's more like comical than anything else. It's generally just a title where you have fun and just forget about it. And that's all you can ask for in a Momori title, though I guess that's why I kind of like Harem Kingdom a little bit more than the other ones, since there was a route or two where like, hey, there's a bit more drama and there's some plot development. All right, that's cool. So you can say like, oh, there's some plot here and there, or some drama here and there, and like most of the Smee titles that are out here, but Poppy's the one with the least, and you're just meant to have a good time. There's some fake out drama in Miyu's route, which was probably the right call, otherwise it'd be kind of like a similar route to something in Friends to Lovers, like, oh, you did this again. It's like, no, I didn't, haha. I was having a good time with Miyu's sections in the comment section or the comment route, and I guess the first quarter of her route, but it just became a normal slice of life stuff after they started going out. It was kind of boring and acting like a little like aggro sassy character was more entertaining to me in the common route. Then there's just like happy clingy character that she became. It's like, all right, you're boring now. For a good bit, it also sounds like this was the same VA that handled Michiru from Grisaya, but that wasn't the case. And I was actually like, holy shit, you kind of sound like her. So for a good portion, it really just felt like you're going through parts with like a competent Michiru this time around. It was funny. The last one is Tamaki, who from what I can tell has a VA that only did this and like a character from Monkeys. She ended up being my favorite out of the 6, and she didn't start out that way, but there's like nothing in that route I'd want to change. Like, I have no complaints on it. It was fine. It's a character that put her needs in the back burner, and now there's like someone that'll support her ass even though she doesn't know how to react to the help. It's like, holy shit, people are actually helping me? It's basically that trope where the main guy just can relax for her and lay down for an hour or so without getting bombarded by like the next thing he has to do, otherwise everybody dies. But instead it's the love interest that takes that spot this time around. Her voice is charming, and it's like those characters that try to puff out their chest to show that like they're reliable even though they're just like a cute shorty and people really don't take them seriously. She has like very like grandparents kid energy, except this is a cute shorty that people actually follow what she actually tells them to do. So the route is just two busybodies that never learned how to rely on others to bash their heads and learn how to rely on each other. It's like, oh, this is nice. It's very endearing. Overall, it's a fine title. There's parts that felt forced. There were parts that were well done, and sometimes it's kind of funny. A lot of the common route is kind of useless as how to interacting with the rest of the cast, which is what you kind of want from it. It's just random events that keep happening, and the main character has to survive the tide until the opportunity to live how he wants to. Basically just the guy going through the motions, so then he can start going out with somebody in the cast and like, oh, I want to do this for my job or something like that. Nozomi is randomly too much at times and just straight up loud, but she has enough to carry her route. Suzuka and Ayako are what I call the more like classic Smee characters, where they have their set personalities that swap to their more unhinged ones when something triggers them. Miyu is the assumed character that becomes too clingy when her route starts, and Tamaki was like the happy little potatoes. It was funny. Why Ayako gets sad about her age when, in my recollection, not even her like late 20s is beyond me. I don't even know how old Tetsuya is, and I just assume he's like 20 or something. The age thing's kind of weird for this one, where there needs to be a big enough gap to make it make sense on how he supports his sister, but still not enough to make it weird for the rest of the cast, though it already is kind of weird for a lot of them. It's still one of the weaker Smee titles, and if I'm counting the main character and his personality, I'd say it's the weakest. And that's just how much I see the Friends to Lovers main character carrying the unhinged comedy. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, I hate that character. He was complete garbage. I'm like, he was funny. Overall, I'm giving this a 6, maybe like a high 6. You know, I think for most people, like it's an 8 or something. It's like, hey, it does its job. But for me, it's like other things from this thing also does the job and it's a lot better, and I give those an 8. So this is the tier list with how I see what had the best humor, and then there's like, oh, here's the best route, or like the best character, and then the best overall plot, and then like the overall of everything. This is based on how much I like their degree of unhinged humor, where it's not near Asa Project, but still a major component compared to like Ubisoft, and I guess Alcott and maybe Moonstone, where it's like, yeah, those titles also, or those brands also have like some kind of weird behavior here and there, and it's funny, but it's not to the level of Smee. I would probably say like the same for Hooksoft. It all looks kind of boring. I never tried one. One thing that's why Smee exists is like a branch. Every time they want to do some weird idea, they'll go to Smee for that. I already made a video for Harem Kingdom a while back and just never pushed it out. It's mainly because it was rather short. I think it's like 5 minutes long. If I take too long with the Ushili title, I'll just push the Harem Kingdom one as like an intermediate, I guess. I got like 2 other ones that are just finished, and the rest I have to edit. That's actually a lot of them, and I kind of keep them in the back burner just in case there's like another long ass VN I want to read, and then it's like, oh, I don't have time to make anything for like a couple of months. So like if I ever do like the 100 line or whatever it's called, it's like, hey, give me like 3 back burner things I almost have done and just push it out. But that's about it for this one.